Tamsin Broster is a confidence and visibility coach who helps women break free from the pressure to look perfect and be palatable so they can show up boldly, speak with authority, and grow a business that reflects who they truly are. After 20 years in the Ministry of Defense, Tamsin knows exactly how exhausting it is to hide who you are to fit in. Now, she brings that experience alongside deep work around body image, menopause, and self confidence to help women dismantle the voice in their heads that says, hey, you're not good enough. Her work is for women who are done with hiding, done with shame, and ready to grow their business and stop playing small. Welcome, Tamsin. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Me too. So we'll just go right into it. Talk about your journey, how you got to being the coach of Unshakable Confidence.
Yeah, well, I'll try and give it a shortish story, I suppose. But I was in the MOD for 20 years. At 18, I got my first full-time job. I left college, went into that job, and I climbed my way through this very male-dominated space that I was in. But I really, really loved it. And then when I got to about 38, I had my second child, and I was in probably the most senior position I'd ever been in, and I'd worked my way up to that. And perimenopause hit me, motherhood hit me, burnout hit me, trying to survive in a role that was not created or designed for me, in an office that wasn't designed for me. And my mother got sick and everything collided, and I had a very serious burnout and left. And I had some time off, and I really needed it, actually. I really needed to come back to myself, find out who I was, working out my new identity with these two young kids that I had, and I was just trying to find myself and my way. But I had always been very focused on how I looked. I was very always worrying about my weight. I was always really focused on, I was always on a diet. I was always talking about what I was doing to get thinner. I was always trying something new, and I was just constantly in this kind of war zone with my body. And that downtime, that quiet space of just being at home with the kids made me realize that I was putting so much time and effort into worrying about what I looked like and how my body was shaped, that actually was taking me away from the things that I could enjoy. And actually I was just constantly fighting against my body. And I did a lot of work on body image and really helped get myself to a place of peace. And yes, that meant my body expanded, but actually I really just started to enjoy my body and started to really understand that I couldn't force it or fix it or do all these things. But like most women, I loved that message so much, and I loved that piece that I had found. I wanted to give it to other people because that's what we do. And I suddenly started loving working with women, and I set up my own business about 12 months after I had left my full-time job. And I still hadn't really decided that that's what I was going to do forever. But I realized that I needed to go all in and not go back to my other job. So I decided to resign officially and really, really actually, pull the plug on that career. And it's just been evolving for the last 5 years. It's just been evolving into this, amazing thing, which I still talk about. Body image, it underpins a lot of the work that I do, but it's not the only thing that I talk about, because lots of women struggle with their self-worth and their confidence in so many different ways and in so many different scenarios, whether it be building a business, whether it's building your career, when your life changes and you get to those later sandwich years when you've got young kids and, older parents, aging parents, and all of the stuff that life throws at us around this age group. That's kind of what I focus on now. So yeah, that's how I've got to this point.
Yeah, so through your personal experience, you were able to gain some of this, I guess, confidence in yourself to go out and help others because you identify that there's a need.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. There and because I hit all those different things at the same time, and I see this with my clients now, all of these things just collide in the same space. You don't usually, it just suddenly starts to have this kind of domino effect, like one thing and then it's another and it's another. And then all of a sudden you realize that you have been giving and giving and serving and serving. And then when you need that back, it's not coming. Your estrogen's dropping off a cliff and you're no longer putting up with it all. And then you just have all this stuff going on, maybe shame, guilt, and this kind of reckoning with yourself. That's the only real way to describe it. It's like this becoming, but we sometimes resist that and end up kind of wanting to get back to how we were and be the nice girl that we were, and, don't want to kind of let that be. And what I help women do is just to say, actually, this is not about going back. This is about trying to meet who you're going to be, who you are, who you're becoming. And when we've got the self-trust, that brings the confidence in ourselves. When we really, really deeply trust ourselves and have that inner knowing that we can block out all that noise and we can, move forward in whatever direction it is that we're going.
Yes, it's this acceptance that we have of who we are and who we really uncover who we want to be as well, because we go through changes just like you did when you worked. And I just want to clarify, you worked at the Ministry of Defense?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Which was a huge job, right? And then you have kids, and then your kids are older. So these transitions, you're almost burying yourself every time, in these earlier years of your life. And then you're opening up to this, like, who am I? Where am I? Where do I want to go? And then you discover, well, maybe I'm afraid to do anything because I haven't done anything, or I've always done stuff for everyone else, and I forgot what it's like to be ambitious and start something
or
new.
do something that I knew who I was expected to be, but I had never experienced being who I wanted to be, or just existing in a way that I wanted to be. I always knew that, dieting plays a role in that. And I know that people can't always make that connection, but, dieting was about becoming someone society wanted me to be, about fixing my body in a way and in eating in a way nobody cared. Nobody cared whether that meant that I was struggling, whether that meant that I had enough energy to look after my kids, whether that meant that I was healthy or happy. As long as I was getting thin, nobody cared. And actually, it's not just dieting where that shows up. I had a job that was sucking the life from me, and yes, sometimes I loved it, and there was many years that I loved it, but I didn't mean I was always going to love it, but it was expected of me. Nobody really cared about that, because it was like, well, you've got the house and you've got a good salary and you've got all this stuff, and it means that it was like one of those jobs that was kind of had a bit of like substance to it. So when somebody said, what do you do for a living? And I'm like, well, I look after helicopter contracts for the military. Well, great. That sounds good. That
Glamorous.
sounds good. Yeah. It's like, wow, that sounds interesting. And I'm like, yeah, it's not really. And it just kind of sounded good. So I knew that society was praising me, but I didn't know I didn't know how much peace there would be. I just thought I was going towards that. I thought I was were on the right path as such, because it was ticking all the boxes, but not mine.
Yeah. Wow, that's a great story. So let's talk a little bit about how women can identify if what is holding them back. So you work with women to create this unshakable confidence. And what's the first step in first identifying, hey, I'm not really confident? Well, how does that show up for people or for women?
Yeah, do you know, I was having this conversation with somebody else actually just yesterday when I was talking about what I do, and we were talking about how clients come to find me. Now, in the early days, I used to talk a lot about binge eating and emotional eating when I first started my business. I don't actually go into that much anymore, but it was interesting because I can remember a particular client in those early days who came to me because she was like, I just cannot get my hands out of the biscuit tin. When I'm at home and I'm working on my own, I just can't seem to hold back, and I seem to have all these things. The coaching that we went through led to us finding out that she had a really real kind of fear of being seen because of an operation she had, which changed how she looked significantly. And it's so interesting that we started off over here talking about eating too many biscuits, but actually she was soothing herself. She was using food to soothe herself through the traumatic experience of something that had happened to her post having children. And I always still find that fascinating that we can go from one place to the other. So the way that I start when I talk to people is I just ask questions. I am a bit like an investigator, and I ask questions a bit like the doctors do that don't always seem relevant, but they are to me because I'm listening for something. And that's the key skill. As you know, when you're coaching, you're listening. You're listening more than you're talking, and you're asking those significant questions. And then I will reflect it back to people, and there will quite often be like this massive aha moment, like, oh my God, that's what's in the way. And once we know what's in the way, once we have that awareness, then we can change it. But when we're moving through it, she could still be out there thinking, I've got a problem with biscuits. I've got a problem with biscuits. And when I say biscuits, I always wonder whether people know what I'm talking about because it's a British thing,
like
you know?
it's cookies or sweets.
Cookies.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she could have been really trying to solve that problem. And how she would solve that problem is she would diet harder. She would restrict more. She would move her body more. She would exercise more. But actually, when we got to it, that wasn't the thing. It wasn't about that. There was so much more behind the reasoning why. But once we brought her awareness to it, the binging and the eating, the emotional eating stopped because she was able to go, I'm just doing that to try and soothe myself. What are the other things that I can do to help myself feel confident in the body that I have now got, that I cannot change because this thing has happened to me, and how can I deal with that? You know, is it therapy? Is it, being just working on her confidence in her appearance? Is it that she might dress differently, that she might have her hair cut or something? I don't know, whatever it might be. But we're not focusing on the wrong thing. And this is what I find, especially with business owners as well, or people in their careers, they seem to think that their problem is one thing and they're working so hard towards that and it's not doing anything. And then when we work through it, we realize that actually there's something else and we can then focus on that. And it makes the route to kind of clearing that is so much quicker. You're not messing around with things that aren't working anymore.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. I'm hearing you and I'm thinking of my own my own binging eating that I do, and I eat a lot of crisps, and I'm wondering, which are chips here in the US, and I'm wondering, well, what's happening with that? Like, am I bored? What's going on? And so I need to figure out what the deal is with that too. There could be some underlying things when you're doing something habitually, you're not realizing it. And there's also this feeling of judgment and criticism that you can often get from someone else when you're trying to put yourself out there, make a change or do something, you're worried about someone else saying, hey, this is not you, or why are you doing that? I'm sure you often come across that as well.
Definitely. And I think, like for myself, let's take me for an example. I had an identity. I worked for the civil service. I'd worked for them my whole life. I was married to, and I still am, married to my military husband. And, we have 4 kids between us. We have 2 together, and he's got 2 from a previous marriage. We live where we live, and we, do the things that we do. And we had those identities. So when things change, or things are different, it's unsettling for other people. And quite often it's that question of, oh, is that the right thing to do? And you get those kind of quizzical things, especially with me. No, my whole identity was built around being thinner. My whole family always knew that I was on some kind of quest to get thinner. And it was always like, oh, you're working so hard, well done. And depending on where I had got to on the scale, well done. You can imagine me doing a full 360 and going, I'm not doing that anymore. I'm not doing that anymore. My body can just be how it is. I'm going to concentrate on my health. I'm going to make sure I'm eating the way that nourishes me. That means I have energy to show up in my life fully. That means I can go for the runs that I love doing. That means I can go and lift the weights in the gym. Like I need to eat to be able to do that. I cannot be existing on coffee and Diet Coke like I was, and
protein shakes.
Yeah, and just trying to and calling it health. It's not happening anymore. And of course, people start to then worry. But what about your health? But what about what about what the doctors might say? What about? And then they start to do that. But that's not about me. And I've had to learn this. This is about them and their fears and what they don't want to let go. And sometimes when your whole family have got you in their category, in that box where you fit, you'll find that when you decide to break out of that, which naturally you will at some point with something in your life, whether it's a career change, whether it's a relationship breakdown, people will question whether you're doing the right thing. I remember leaving my ex-alcoholic long-term boyfriend who I owned a house with, and my dad was not concerned about what I had been through and why I was breaking up with. He was more concerned that I was losing my house. But hang on, what about the financial gain? And I understood where he was coming from. Right. But do you see what I mean? That was about his fears of losing a property and losing money. I did lose a property. I lost a lot of money, but I gained my health, my mental health, and my freedom.
Absolutely.
And that to me was more important. But for my dad, he thinks differently to me. He's very logical. He was very, he was always worried about, concerned about money.
Practicality, financial, right.
It's not because if I had to turn around and said to him, no, I need to leave because of my own safety and sanity, he would have absolutely understood, but his first reaction was about what he was worried about, because that's what we have to remember. Anytime you're making a big change or a big shift in your life, or you absorbing like a new identity, you have to realize that you won't take everybody with you. They will drop off. They will change how they see you. They've got to fit you into a new category now. And that's okay. We have to that's not for us to manage.
Right. Yeah. And we can, and the same with other people. If they need to make a change, we need to realize that's their journey, their path. How did you feel once you decided, hey, I'm good. I'm going to just do what makes me feel good. I have accepted who I am. How did that must have made you feel like so good.
I think it's the headspace that you get when you're not thinking in numbers every time that you eat, and you're not weighing out every single thing, and you're not, it's the headspace and the freedom and the space to just be, and like letting go of the job and discovering who I am. But then alongside that, there are some things where you doubt yourself, and you can think to yourself, well, is this the right path? Should I stick with that sensible 9 to 5? And, I still, sometimes it crosses my mind now. And I think when you have a difficult month in business or anything like that, you suddenly think, oh, is this the right path? But I just trust myself to lead myself and lead the way, and not kind of, I want to make sure that even when I make a decision, that it's my own peace and that my own energy is protected, because that I can't buy that. There's nothing that I never had that before, and I don't want to let it go now, because it feels so precious having that space in my brain to concentrate on living.
Yeah, it's a mindset, and I love what you said about having your energy. I forgot exactly what you said, but you're at peace and you have your own energy, and you've worked at getting to this point, and it feels good. It's work to get to that place.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it is so unique and different for everybody, because everybody's in a different position. I help people that are in careers that want to stay in those careers but are struggling with their confidence, maybe have hit perimenopause and are suddenly struggling to speak up in a meeting, or finding that they are second guessing themselves. They're finding their brains not as organized as it used to be when they were in their 20s, and suddenly things are muddly, and we're forgetting things, and we can't think on the spot, and we're climbing that ladder, but in our careers, but maybe not feeling as confident in ourselves as we go further. And that is very common. But I also help people who are maybe starting out and doing that transition, specifically from like a job where they have that identity, where that is, they know, that paycheck comes into the bank, they know what they're doing at work, but it's sucking the soul from them, and they have found something new. And so often help people move from a little bit like I did with like a military background career, and having that very formal kind of known career, into something that's a bit more kind of soft coaching, things that are like, when they might be getting into more kind of spiritual side of things, like crystals, and thinking about nourishing themselves through different rituals that maybe their family just don't see them as that kind of person. It's a new identity. So we're helping, I'm helping people move from that space, but with confidence, to really own it and say, do you know what? I don't know what I'm doing, but I want to explore it, and I want to be okay with that. But they have to be okay with that in themselves first. So quite often people will think it's actually about what other people think of them. What we uncover through coaching sessions is it's actually not, it's about what you think of you. And it's the barrier you have about that identity and the things that you hold up. Same with weight and same with body size. It's the identity shift that you have to do for yourself, not necessarily other people. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
for me, I was always trying to be thin. I was either thinner than I am now, or I was trying to get thinner. So I was being a good girl. If I was ever in my plus size body, I was always on track as heading away from it. So everyone was like, oh, it's okay, because you're trying. I was either trying or I was getting there. And then when I stopped trying and I just existing in this body, I had to accept that that was okay. And there's a tendency when people first do that work and they work on themselves with their relationship with food and their body and feel like they have to really prove that they're healthy. And I was like that in the first bit. I was really like, but I'm still doing this and I'm still doing that. And I don't prove anything to anyone anymore. Like that's just too much for my energy. That's what I help people do. You don't have to prove anything to anyone. And it's the same with anything. I've got a client at the moment who's transitioning from a very safe job, respectable job into being a coach. And she is feeling like she's got to prove that she's not doing anything silly. She's not taking too much risk, that she can still earn the same amount of money, but she's got to prove it to herself, because until she can get to the place where she believes that in herself, she will struggle. She will just sit in this place of struggle where she's trying to, prove to her loved ones, her partner, her family, that she's not doing anything silly. Women we don't want to be seen as silly, taking risks. We're not socialized that way. So that's the process that we go through, is this like shedding of these beliefs, but they're your beliefs, not other people's, because we can't control other people. And it's letting go of like I can't control what people think of my body. I can walk down the street and some people would be like, oh my gosh, she looks great, and won't say that I am fat or plus size or anything else. And then other people will think that I'm huge because that's their perception of body size. I am not in control of them. It matters what I think of me. And that's all that counts. And it's taken me a very long time to get to that place.
It can. And a lot of people, and you're talking about women who are transitioning and not feeling confident, but there's a lot of this imposter syndrome. And I know this is a term that gets tossed around a lot. And even when I became a yoga teacher and I first learned how to do that, I was so worried about teaching, because I'm like, who am I to teach? I just learned. But I knew it was something that I needed to do. It was like a life's purpose, or a part of my life's purpose. Even when I became a Reiki teacher or a Reiki practitioner, like people are like, what's Reiki? And I'm like, I was afraid to talk about it. But I knew in my heart, this is what I'm intended to do. Now it's more mainstream, but you just have to own it.
Yeah, and that's you're right in what you're saying about imposter syndrome. Some people sort of say it's made up, and I agree with that, but it's still a term that people recognize and understand. So I still talk about it, because it is something that I think women are linked to much more often with this imposter syndrome, because we're not taught to be like owning our identities, are we? Or things that we love, our passions. They always have to come last. The kids have to come first, the partners have to come first, and then even careers have to come first. Everyone's always talking about what we're doing for other people, and we're not taught to really lean into what lights us up or what brings us joy, especially if that is seen as something a little bit kind of odd to other people.
We're odd.
Yeah, absolutely. And I try not to use that term, because I think it's just joy. That's all we're talking about. When I sit here with my, oracle cards in the morning,
Me too.
I have zero idea whether this is like, I'll be honest, I don't really sit and think whether it's something that is real or not real. It doesn't matter. It brings me so much joy to just get those cards out and say, what message do I need to hear today? And I love the fact that I keep getting the same card every day for the last week. Driving me crazy.
It's great, isn't it?
It's just something that I take pleasure. It's not harming anyone. And I think I see lots of women, especially around that sort of age where they sort of come into perimenopause, wanting to lean into more of those things. We're searching for something, and we want some purpose, and we want some guidance, and we want to feel that way. And we often look to dieting, beauty, those kind of things to give us that. And that is why we still feel like we're chasing something, because we're clinging on to something that's kind of making other people money. It's not really fulfilling for us. We think we're going to be fulfilled when we get rid of all those wrinkles and we lose that weight, and actually we get there and then we realize it's not actually true.
I know you also mentioned perimenopause and menopause, and how does that impact, well, I'm going to say women entrepreneurs, their confidence and self-image. So I want to talk a little bit about, transitioning into that and embracing the changes that occur, how can women do that?
Perimenopause is a big shift. It's a big shift in identity. You can feel it. There's something different. There's anger, there's rage, there's a lot of, like, I call it our good girl hormone, estrogen, decides to leave the building. And when she's gone, you are unfiltered and you are like rageful. And I think I remember what I called the episode now, but I had a podcast episode like, are you perimenopausal, or do you just literally hate the fact that your husband's leaving his socks on the floor? Because actually, sometimes we blame our hormones. And my mother always said this to me. Sometimes she said it is your hormones. She said, but more often than not, it's because someone's being an idiot and annoying you. And actually, we've got to stop blaming ourselves and our hormones. But actually, all it's doing is removing this layer. So there's so many different things that go on for women as they're going through this stage. Our bodies are changing and our identity is shifting. But we've also got lots of other things going on externally to that. So there's lots of things, like we are probably at the height of our career. We are probably in the most senior position that we've ever been in. We have probably got other people that are starting to rely on us that we have not had that before, like maybe aging parents, maybe young kids, maybe teenagers or kids going into adulthood that are relying on us in different ways. And there's so many layers of things, and then all this stuff going on in our body, and our bodies change. And because society pushes women into this box of we should look like this, we should act like this, we're still trying to fit ourselves into that mold, but all of these other things are stopping that from working. And I call it it's like a wake up call. It's like nature's way of saying, no, no more. That's it. You've done your time. You've done all the stuff for everybody else. Now is the time to come back to yourself and come home to yourself. But that's so difficult because we're still going, but I've got to be as thin as possible, but I've got to be as good as possible. I've got to be, and then we see the poster women for perimenopause. And in the UK, it's like Davina McCall. I don't know what you've got maybe in the States, but this woman is amazing, but she is like washboard abs. She's like running marathons. Like most of us, I mean,
no, absolutely not.
And that's what we're comparing ourselves to. That's what we are told. You know what? If you just work hard enough, this could be your reality. And in truth, it's not that. There's so much at play. Genetics, there's economic status, there's education, there's so many other factors that are at play. This is why I'm always saying to women, like, what do you want? What would you enjoy? I've taken up weightlifting in my 40s because I know it's going to help my body, my perimenopausal body. And it makes me feel so strong and so I love it.
Right.
But I never would have got there beforehand because I wasn't interested. And now I love it, but you've got to do the things that light you up. I have time for that. I have the money for that. Like, there's so many other things. And we've got to stop blaming ourselves. Like, what would feel good to you with the resources you have, in the body you have, in the time that you have? What would feel good to you? Yeah. And that's what this kind of time is about. And I think the other thing that I didn't mention there was quite often women at this stage of life get their diagnosis with ADHD, autism, all the things that were missed when we were covering it up all of our whole lives. Some of those they rise to the surface. Everything just floats to the surface.
Yes, so. That's true. And we have to get rid of, but we still have to get rid of some of these labels. Like, I don't like when people say, well, I'm menopausal and perimenopausal, that's why I'm doing that. I'm like, yes, but don't take that on as a label. It's okay what you're going through. Accept it and allow it to happen, but don't say, don't because then other people will just say, oh, she's menopausal. That's why she's raging, or that's why she's acting that way, or whatever.
And that's the problem, that we don't then get the help that we need. We don't have to make it our entire personality.
Exactly.
It can be something that we are working through because there's so many different phases, and lots of women sort of, come out the other side and think, well, what was that? And then some women don't come out the other side. It just becomes their new normal. So it's very individual, and there's not a one size fits all at all.
It is hard navigating the menopause, perimenopause environment because, there's a lot of information out there, more now than there ever was. The support is there. Seek support. Don't feel like you're navigating things alone. I think that's another thing. People don't ask, women don't ask for help. Women are like, I got it. I've got this. I've raised children. I've had a job. I've done this. What about like people like yourself that they can reach out to? Someone that can help them. Doctors. Maybe there's maybe not. I don't know. Not so many doctors that help with perimenopause or menopause. But there's got to be resources out there that
Yeah,
Help you.
there's a lot. I am part of a menopause group on Facebook actually, and there's many experts in there, and I provide the confidence side of things and talk
Oh,
just about
nice.
that. And
Yeah,
there's other people that do like the HRT and the natural remedies and the relaxation. There's
sure.
loads of help out there. I
Yeah.
think you're right. We have to stop thinking that we've got to struggle alone, because this is a time of our life where it can get dangerous to struggle alone. It can get really dark and really hard. And you think you're broken and you think that your body is failing you, or, at least being unfair to you. And
Yeah.
actually, it's because of the expectations externally that we're putting on ourselves. When we come back to
Yeah.
there, you'll find that actually your body's just doing what it needs to do.
Yeah. When you said that about fixing ourselves, I mean, my whole body just was like, it hit home what you said that, because I feel like constantly, maybe me personally, I just feel like, oh, there's always something I'm trying to fix, whether it's like my body or my health or my image or my words or my mental. Every day, sometimes I'm like, oh my God, please, Rose, just stop talking in your head. You know?
It's turning that internal chatter off, or turning that internal chatter into, I always think that you can't actually turn her off. Like,
Can't.
she's part of you, not really. But you can let her speak. And when you let her just have her say, and I just like to disagree with her and go, yeah, yeah, I get what you're saying, but actually I've got this. Like, I'm okay. I'm going to
Yeah.
do it my way, because that just is. And then she's just quieter. And always talk about this like balance of wanting to bring that quiet, knowing, self-assured part of you, which is in there. She's just quieter. So we've got to let the noisy one speak. And then when she's had her say, she will be quiet, and then the other one can kind of come through. So
Yeah.
it's bit, most of us live our lives with just this constant noise of, you need to be thinner, you need to be faster runner, you need to be doing, educating more, you need to be, oh, I don't know, like there's such a list of
We're so
things.
hard on ourselves. And I've tried to manage that voice by saying, listen, when it starts to say something like, I've got this. Okay, I'm good. I'm good.
Yeah, that's a great way to approach it, because I think sometimes we don't even start, women typically don't even start things. Meditation is a perfect example. The amount of women I come across, they're like, well, I tried it, but I don't really know how to do it. It's because they're trying to make it look like it could be put on Instagram. Like, it does,
Yeah.
that's not how it looks in real life. Actually, we're not cheating if you go for a guided meditation. If that's the only way you can switch your brain off, do it. I've never ever left guided meditation. I've never got into anything else, because that
Guided
just works.
meditation
It's
is
great.
fabulous because it really helps you. It really is a great way to start.
Yeah.
And I just went every morning, and I started this ritual, and it really helps me before I get out of bed. Even I just, I have either a crystal next to my bed or something. I put it on my heart, and I just like pray or ask for guidance.
It's calmer. You're starting from a calmer position. And this is what I talk about in terms of morning routines. It's not necessarily what we should be doing, because everybody's going to feel different in their routine. It's the things that bring us like stress or shame, like going on our phones first of all and getting all that information that we don't really need to be looking at that first point in the morning, or telling ourselves in our head that we're not allowed to eat until a certain time because we fear what that means, or as soon as we put our feet down off the bed thinking, I'm going to go weigh myself to see how much I weigh today. Why? All of those things are just bringing you shame and stress, like over and over again. And that is when you start removing those things and you start your day in like a calmer way, like you're saying. I think people think their morning routine should look a certain way, and then they get hung up in that, and then
Yeah.
they feel like, oh, I can't do it. But actually it's not about that. It's like removing the things that actually create that feeling, and then you'll start to replace them with what feels good for you, and that could be anything. If we take away some of those stress and
Triggers.
shame inducing triggers that plan out the rest of our day completely, because especially like for things like, I encourage women to give up the scales, because when you're always in the morning that we step on them, and actually that dictates how you feel in your clothes, how you're going to talk to yourself all day, what you're going to eat or not eat all day. You're not
So
going to
true.
nourish yourself. You're panicking, thinking, oh, if I just skip another couple of meals, and then by the end of the day you're so tired and you're just diving into all the food, and you're thinking, oh, I'll start again tomorrow. And then you just feel go to bed with that shame. So you're going up with that shame, go to bed with the shame. Like, we've got to get out of that
Terrible
cycle.
cycle. Yes, you start hitting the biscuits and the crisps, and that's
Exactly.
it. You're done. No, I have to start ditching that scale because I'm convinced that scale's messing with me every day.
Yeah, it's just another stick to beat ourselves with. It doesn't tell us anything.
I know that nutrition and diet is a whole nother topic that is constantly changing, and we don't have to dive deep here. But I'm starting to hear more about. So fasting is a big topic, and like I said, we're not talking details here, but people talk about fasting. But for women to do something like that, I'm learning that it's not the correct form of dieting for them, because fasting may actually cause harm for women. So I guess this is just me saying to women out there, before you start going down the hole or a program that may not be the best thing for you, just kind of tune in to notice like how you're
Yeah.
feeling after doing it for a couple of days. It's not about losing weight, but how are you feeling? Like, is it messing you up? It
Yeah.
can mess you up.
I've had some good conversations about this actually, and I think it's probably I'd just give you sort of
Yeah,
like a little
absolutely.
kind of snapshot of my thought process on this, because I obviously don't advocate anyone doing anything to do with their body. And as we're in this world of weight loss drugs now, with like this is here, and people are taking that left, right, and center, even people who don't need to take it, and
Scary.
that is a frightening time. And for perimenopausal women, I did a whole episode in this on my previous podcast about weight loss drugs, because the effect it has on your bone density is very alarming and concerning if you don't manage it the right way, and you don't have those tools. Like you're gonna start losing muscle, and you're gonna start losing bone density, and that is frightening, because as we know, osteoporosis and all that stuff happen
Yes.
around that menopause age, and it could accelerate that significantly. So that's the only thing I'd say about that. But I think what I would come back to is you always have body autonomy. This is what I always say to people is I'm not here to tell someone that they should or shouldn't diet, because you know how you feel in your body. Like I am in the biggest body I've ever been in, but I actually feel healthy and energized. Now, if I didn't, that would be different, because I would maybe be thinking, well, how can I feel energized and healthy? Because there's no good. I don't want anyone to say, well, I'm not going to diet anymore, therefore sod it. Like that's not fun. That's not a fun place to be, where you're just saying, well, I just can eat everything I want. In fact, if I have clients that come to me and say that, that's a bit of a red flag to me. We want to be saying yes and no and maybe and not now and tomorrow and another day for food and things with nutrition, because we're thinking about that bigger picture. But when it comes to things like intermittent fasting, exactly like you said, if there are like signs that it's not working for you, it's not giving you the thing that you wanted in terms of like energy and sleep and all of those things, and all you can think about is like your clock watching to the time that you can eat, and then you're getting all the food in, and you're like, I had somebody who I was talking to, she was like, oh, I love fasting, and she was talking to me about it, and I was like, oh great, and then she was like, I just wish I could stop just eating so much when I am allowed to eat. And I was like, but it's because it's because of the
You're
it's
starving.
because of the restriction that if you can fast and then calmly eat in a normal, relaxed way, great, fine. If that would feel good, that would be fine. But I don't recommend or not recommend anything. I think everybody has autonomy to do whatever they want with their body, but you've got to just go inwards. This comes back to the same thing, going back to yourself, going back to what works for you, because what works for one person won't work for someone else. And especially with things like diets and fads like this, the information of you should be doing this is just wafted around freely. Never does anyone ever say, how does that feel in your body? How can that fit into your life? Does that work for your family dynamics? Does that work for what you're doing for a living, the shift work you might be doing, whatever it might be? Like we got to come from an internal place.
Is there anything else you wanted to talk about?
No, I don't think so. I think we've covered just such a wide range of stuff.
Did.
I think we just keep coming back to the same thing, which is coming home to yourself, and that's really what I try to do with this unshakable confidence. And the reason I talk about unshakable confidence is because that's what I want you to find is the confidence that can't be knocked by something external. Like it can't be like wobbled around, because actually it then goes back to being stable again, because you're centered and you are really, you trust yourself and you believe in yourself and all the things that you want, and you don't mind getting it wrong. And that's when you can see a million social media posts that tell you got to be thinner or you got to look a certain way, but you're in your own knowing. You're unshakable. You're not moving.
Yes, I love that. Talk about what you offer then too, what your offerings and where we can find.
Yeah, well, at the moment I'm working with business owners who want to stop holding themselves back because of how they look or maybe how they feel about themselves. And I've got this program coming up called Known, which is about helping them get known for what they do. So they may have some expertise in a certain area, and they can really shed this idea that they have to be small, charge, very little, wait for speaking gigs to come along, wait for the podcast things, to write the book, wait for the PR. They can do it themselves. Like, we're not waiting for people to save us anymore. Known is about getting known for what you do and really owning it. And that starts on June the 3rd. So I've got that coming up. And then I have a few kind of freebies. My podcast is one of them, which is the Unshakable Confidence Podcast. And I have another freebie, which is how to pitch yourself a podcast that you can guest like I do. I kind of packaged that up into something because people were asking me, like, how do you get so many? I'm like, well, I just kind of listen to some I like, and then I reach out to the person and I'm like, can I come on as a guest? And these are so I put it in a PDF so people could do it themselves.
Lovely.
Because
that's perfect.
So many women are like, oh, no one ever asked me. And I'm like, no one ever asked me either. I asked myself. That's how I get out there.
I think you get to a certain age, and I even tell people, just ask. What do you got to lose? It's costing nothing. If they
Exactly.
say yes, it's great. If they say no, then it's not meant to be. So
Exactly.
move on
There's
to the
so
next person.
often you think about, well, people must know this, right? And then I realize they don't. So I put it in a file, and somebody messaged me the other day. She's a really good friend of mine, actually, but owns her own business. She was like, this is gold. Like, this is just contains so much. You should have charged for it. But it is my freebie. It's just one of the things that people kind of get when they sign up and come into my world and get a little bit more confidence. So yeah.
Lovely. This has been great conversation, Tamsin. I really appreciate you being here. And I just encourage everyone to go out there and find you and listen to your podcast, because it's great. I've been listening to your podcast as well, and I love it. So thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you for having me. I've loved it.